Episode 1. The upload that wasn't ours. I didn't believe in cursed videos. Not until we found one on our own YouTube channel. We never uploaded it. There was no trace in the back end. No notification. No alert. Just there, right at the top of our feed. New upload, June 4th, 3:03 a.m., untitled. That was the night everything changed. We're a team of 3 content creators. Tech, horror, weird internet mysteries. Our channel is called Digital Dust, a place for uncovering abandoned corners of the internet, forgotten forums, curse memes, and eerie archives from the early days of Web 1.0. But that night, we became the mystery. At 3:03 a.m., a video appeared. No title, just 17 seconds long. We thought it was a glitch, until we pressed play. The screen opened in complete static. That kind of analog snow you don't see anymore. Crackling, shifting, like a TV stuck between frequencies. Then, a face, but not directly. It was a reflection. Someone filming a mirror, or rather, someone standing in front of a mirror recording something else. The reflection was too sharp, too clear, but the person holding the camera wasn't there. And then the voice. If you're watching this, it's already started. Cut to black. We laughed at first. This is good, I said. Really good ARG material. Maybe someone's playing a game with us. But the file didn't exist in our uploads. Not on the server. Not even in the recovery bin. And the analytics? It had 0 views. Even after we watched it. How does a video play with 0 views? That's when I checked the comments. There were none. Except one. A comment posted 7 minutes before the video went live. She's not in the mirror anymore. We tried downloading the file. It didn't work. Every time we clicked download, it would return an error. Source not found, error code, G.H05T. That wasn't a real YouTube error. We tried screen recording instead. OBS crashed. Twice. Then, at exactly 3:03 p.m., 12 hours after it first appeared, the video vanished. Just like that. No trace. But the comment remained. She's not in the mirror anymore. That night, we received an email. No sender. No subject. No body. Just an attachment. A .txt file titled _broadcast txt. We opened it. Inside were GPS coordinates. And a single line of text. She was never on the tape. She was in the transmission. The coordinates pointed to a small town in northern Pennsylvania. Population, 8,142. Town name, Red Pines. We'd never heard of it. But when we looked up Red Pines, something jumped out immediately. In 2003, a local TV station there, Channel 103, shut down overnight. No official reason. But Reddit, 4chan, and deep forum horror circles all echoed one name. The Mirror Broadcast. A supposed live news segment aired for 17 seconds before the signal cut. Viewers claimed it showed a girl standing in front of a mirror, just standing, staring, but no anchor, no graphics, no audio, only a whisper. If you're watching this, it's already started. Same words as the video we saw. We had to go. We packed our gear, rented a car, and drove 6 hours north. On the way, we joked about it. Maybe it was an elaborate ARG. Maybe someone hacked our channel as part of a horror campaign. But something didn't feel like a game. We kept seeing signs on the highway. Not billboards, signs. Handwritten, spray painted. On abandoned barns, under overpasses. She never left the airwaves. Don't look directly. Tuned to 103 at 3:03. When we got to Red Pines, it felt off. Everything was still, too still. No birds, no wind, just this pressure in the air, like static. The old station, Channel 103, was still there, boarded up, graffiti covered. But the tower, still standing, still blinking red. And when we turned on our car radio, station 103.0 was still broadcasting. Dead air, but not silent. There was a hum, a low tone, constant, unchanging. until 3:03 a.m. That's when we heard it, knocking, not from the radio, from the trunk. We froze, 3 of us, middle of nowhere, 3:03 a.m., and something or someone just knocked from inside our trunk. No one moved at first. We just stared at the car, waiting for another sound. But nothing came. Finally, Darren reached for the keys. I wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. Click. The trunk popped. He lifted it. Empty. No one inside. No signs of forced entry. Just one thing. Our old Sony DV camcorder. It was dusty, battered, and dead. The same one we thought we lost 6 months ago during a shoot in the Catskills. We'd searched everywhere, assumed someone stole it, filed it as gone. But here it was, lying perfectly centered in the trunk. Darren picked it up. It was cold, too cold. We brought it into the motel room, plugged it into power. Red light blinked, charging. Then, green. We powered it on. There were 17 new files, all marked with timestamps. But something was wrong. The earliest file was from tomorrow, June 5th, 3:03 a.m. We opened it. At first static, then footage of us sleeping in the exact same motel room, same clothes, same positions, filmed from the ceiling corner. How? I whispered. We looked around. No cameras. The footage showed every detail. Darren's foot twitching, Mia's slow breathing, my hand tucked under the pillow. But then, at timestamp 2:41, the footage glitched, jittered, and the screen darkened, just for a second. When it came back, there she was, in the corner, by the mirror, standing still, back to us, her long black hair falling over a hospital gown. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, and somehow none of us noticed. In the footage, we kept sleeping, peacefully, as if we were under. We tried scrubbing through the rest of the files. They were all the same, each one a new night, a new location, us, sleeping, and her, always there, but never in the same place twice. Once by the window, once crouching near the bathroom, once in the mirror, smiling. We checked the timestamps. The final file was dated June 11th, the last day of our road trip. Title, last broadcast. We clicked it. Nothing played. Just black, and then a line of white text. You've been recording since you pressed play. We tried to turn it off. The camera. Pulled the battery. Unplugged the cord. Still, the red light blinked. Still, it recorded. We smashed the SD card. Ripped the lens from its socket. Still, it blinked. That's when Mia pointed to the mirror. It's not recording us, she said. It's recording what's next. We didn't understand at first. Then she pressed play on the final file again. Last broadcast. The black screen returned. The line of white text was still there. You've been recording since you pressed play. But this time, it kept going. The black faded. A video appeared. We saw ourselves again. But this time we were awake. In the same motel room. Same clothes. Same lighting. Except Darren was missing. And Mia was crying. I was sitting on the bed, talking to the camera, saying something. We turned up the volume. If anyone sees this, do not go live. That's how it gets through. I looked straight into the lens. It's not a video. It's a feed. A channel. It doesn't just show you things, it writes them. Cut to static. The footage timestamp. June 6th, 8:03 p.m. That was tomorrow. And at 8 p.m. tomorrow, we were scheduled to live stream. Just like always, a routine Q&A for fans. We stared at the camera. It blinked again, and something changed in the room. The mirror, fogging, but there was no steam, no heat, just condensation forming one word across the glass. Live. We canceled the live stream, deleted every scheduled post, pulled the plug on the router, removed every device. But the channel was still live. Our fans messaged us. We can see you guys. Sick marketing. Is this ARG part 2? Who's the girl in the back? We weren't filming, but YouTube said we were broadcasting from our location with the exact same framing as a video from tomorrow. Mia covered the mirror with a blanket. We smashed the modem. I ripped out the wall cables. Everything offline, but the live feed kept going. And the view count? Rising. Slowly. One by one. 1, 2, 4, 8. 16, 33, 66, 144. Each number felt wrong. Felt heavy. Multiplying like cells. Darren left. It started with a whisper. At first, we thought it was a motel pipes, old water lines, creaking floorboards. But when we isolated the audio from the last broadcast video, the whisper was in the track, layered beneath the static, looped exactly every 33 seconds. She's watching. Not we, not they, she. That same night, a folder appeared on Darren's laptop. He was gone, but his laptop was still here. It wasn't connected to Wi-Fi. Yet somehow, on the desktop, a new file sat blinking. Feed.mp4. We hesitated, then hit play. The video opened on Mia, alone, sitting in the exact same chair where she was now. Except in the video, she looked different. Eyes glazed, skin pale, mouth slightly open, and she was staring at something off camera. A voice called her name. My voice. In the video, I was behind the camera, asking her if she was okay. But Mia didn't blink, didn't react, just kept staring. Then she started whispering something. We increased the volume, filtered the noise. She was saying the same line, again and again. Don't blink, don't look, don't reflect. Over and over, faster each time, until her voice overlapped itself, like multiple versions speaking at once. And in the final frame, she turned her head, but not to the camera, to the mirror, and smiled. I turned to her in real life. Mia was asleep, sitting upright, eyes closed, mouthing the same phrase. Don't blink, don't look, don't reflect. The blanket over the mirror slipped, just a little, and I swear I saw, not Mia, not me, but something else, leaning forward, grinning. The next morning, we got a message on Discord from a fan. You guys are wild. That last live stream? She was talking to someone behind the camera. Who was it? I wrote back instantly. What do you mean? We didn't stream last night. He sent a clip, phone recording of his screen. Our channel, last night, live feed, Mia, alone, talking, but her voice wasn't hers. It was layered, male and female, high and low, synthetic, and at one point she said, "They're watching now. It's too late to unplug. You don't unsubscribe from her." Then she turned to something off-screen and whispered, "Are you ready?" In the clip, the room behind her looked bigger, like the motel had become a studio. And something moved in the shadows behind the curtain. We checked the channel again. The video didn't exist, but the view count, it had doubled. He said he needed air. We never saw him again. Mia stopped sleeping. Or maybe she was always asleep now. Hard to tell. She walked. She ate. She answered our questions. But something in her was misaligned. Like her soul was a few seconds behind her body. She started drawing on napkins. Hundreds of them, each with the same crooked shape. A circle, broken at the top. Inside, a waveform. Below, 3 dots in a triangle. We scanned one into Google. Nothing. We uploaded one to Reddit. Silence. But when we held one napkin up to the TV static on channel 103, the dots aligned perfectly. 3 blinks in sync. Then a pulse. The screen flashed. The air got heavier. And Mia whispered, "She knows you're trying to leave." Later that night, I got a DM. No name. No avatar. Just a string of letters at TRNSMTR. Message read, "Don't let the signal normalize. You've got until June 11th. After that, it won't be a video anymore. It'll be the default." I typed back fast. "Who are you?" No response. Only another message. "Check your camera." Not the footage. The feed. We hooked the cursed camera to a monitor. Didn't play anything. Just switched to live view mode. It showed the motel room. Empty. But something moved. We saw ourselves. Sleeping. But not in our beds. On the floor. In different clothes. With wires taped to our temples. And behind us, a dark studio. Red lights blinking. Monitors humming. And her, the girl in the hospital gown. Except now, she wasn't just in the mirror. She was in the feed, watching us from a control room, hands on the broadcast switch. We ripped the cables out. The image lingered. 5 more seconds. Then, black. The next morning, Mia wasn't in her bed, but the camera, still recording, showing her room. Except now the bed was made, and on the pillow, another napkin. Same drawing. But this time, the waveform was different. Longer, sharper, like a countdown. June 11th. We didn't sleep. We didn't talk. We just waited. The napkin countdown had ended. At 3:03 a.m., all the lights in the motel blinked off, then back on in perfect sync. 3 times. Then the power died. Complete silence, except for one thing. The camera, still blinking, still recording. We turn on our phones. No service. No Wi-Fi. No time. Literally. Our clocks read. Midnight, live. That's when the TV turned on by itself. Channel 103. No static this time. Just us. In the motel. But we weren't there. We were on screen. Speaking. Pleading. Me, on the bed. Looking straight into the lens. Please, this isn't a show. This isn't a stunt. If you're watching this, shut it down. Mia stood beside me, swaying. Her voice overlapped mine. Don't reflect. Don't transmit. Don't become. Then, she looked at the camera, at us, at the real us, watching, and she whispered, "He's almost synced." We backed away. The screen flickered. The audio looped. "He's almost synced. He's almost synced. He's almost..." Until the screen froze on my face. But something was off. The smile, the eyes, too still. Then the image blinked, and so did I. Not in real life. On the screen, out of sync, by half a second. And that's when I felt it. A pull from behind my eyes, from inside the bones of my skull, like something else was blinking through me. I ran to the mirror, tore the blanket off. My reflection stared back, unblinking. Then, slowly it smiled. But I didn't. Not my mouth, not my muscles. My reflection moved on its own. Raised a hand, tapped the glass. 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Behind me, the door opened. A figure entered, wearing my clothes. My face, same voice, same build, but no reflection. None. He walked toward me, calm, certain, paused, and whispered in my ear, "Transmission complete." Then everything went black. Mia stopped sleeping. Or maybe she was always asleep now. Hard to tell. She walked. She ate. She answered our questions. But something in her was misaligned. Like her soul was a few seconds behind her body. She started drawing on napkins. Hundreds of them, each with the same crooked shape. A circle, broken at the top. Inside, a waveform. Below, 3 dots in a triangle. We scanned one into Google. Nothing. We uploaded one to Reddit. Silence. But when we held one napkin up to the TV static on channel 103, the dots aligned perfectly. 3 blinks in sync. Then a pulse. The screen flashed. The air got heavier. And Mia whispered, "She knows you're trying to leave." Later that night, I got a DM. No name. No avatar. Just a string of letters at TRNSMTR. Message read, "Don't let the signal normalize. You've got until June 11th. After that, it won't be a video anymore. It'll be the default." I typed back fast. "Who are you?" No response. Only another message. "Check your camera." Not the footage. The feed. We hooked the cursed camera to a monitor. Didn't play anything. Just switch to live view mode. It showed the motel room. Empty, but something moved. We saw ourselves. Sleeping. But not in our beds. On the floor. In different clothes. With wires taped to our temples. And behind us, a dark studio. Red lights blinking. Monitors humming. And her, the girl in the hospital gown. Except now, she wasn't just in the mirror. She was in the feed, watching us from a control room, hands on the broadcast switch. We ripped the cables out. The image lingered. 5 more seconds. Then, black. The next morning, Mia wasn't in her bed, but the camera, still recording, showing her room. Except now the bed was made. And on the pillow, another napkin. Same drawing. But this time, the waveform was different. Longer, sharper, like a countdown. June 11th. We didn't sleep. We didn't talk. We just waited. The napkin countdown had ended. At 3:03 a.m., all the lights in the motel blinked off, then back on in perfect sync. 3 times. Then the power died. Complete silence, except for one thing. The camera, still blinking, still recording. We turn on our phones. No service, no Wi-Fi, no time. Literally, our clocks read. Midnight, live. That's when the TV turned on by itself. Channel 103. No static this time. Just us, in the motel. But we weren't there. We were on screen, speaking, pleading. Me, on the bed, looking straight into the lens. Please, this isn't a show. This isn't a stunt. If you're watching this, shut it down. Mia stood beside me, swaying. Her voice overlapped mine. Don't reflect. Don't transmit. Don't become. Then, she looked at the camera, at us, at the real us, watching, and she whispered, "He's almost synced." We backed away. The screen flickered. The audio looped. "He's almost synced. He's almost synced. He's almost..." Until the screen froze on my face. But something was off. The smile, the eyes, too still. Then the image blinked, and so did I. Not in real life. On the screen, out of sync, by half a second. And that's when I felt it. A pull from behind my eyes, from inside the bones of my skull. Like something else was blinking through me. I ran to the mirror, tore the blanket off. My reflection stared back, unblinking. Then, slowly it smiled. But I didn't. Not my mouth, not my muscles. My reflection moved on its own. Raised a hand, tapped the glass. 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Behind me, the door opened. A figure entered, wearing my clothes. My face, same voice, same build, but no reflection. None. He walked toward me, calm, certain, paused, and whispered in my ear, "Transmission complete." Then everything went black. I started recording myself, not for content, for proof, to make sure the person waking up every morning was still me. But even in those clips, something felt off. I paused the video halfway, and somehow my eyes were still moving, looking straight at me, not the lens. I kept a notebook beside my bed. Every night, I'd write down 5 things only I would remember. My first pet's name, the song I heard during my first kiss, the scar on my left ankle, the dream I had last night, a secret I never told anyone. But one morning, the page was blank. Same notebook, same pen, just empty, like I'd never written it. Or like someone had turned the page and started again. Mia got worse. She stopped eating, didn't sleep, but the live streams kept coming. Every night at 3:03 a.m., a new clip appeared on random channels. Never scheduled, never uploaded, just there. And in each one, Mia sat alone in a black room, staring forward, until she whispered, "This is not my voice." And the voice didn't match her mouth. The timing was milliseconds off, as if someone else was speaking through her, using her like a track. We tried contacting YouTube again. Silence. Then a message came through our business email. No address, no logo, just we are not hosting this content. And an attachment, a video, title, backup_0001_unlisted. It showed a montage of our own videos. From years ago, old vlogs, bloopers, unreleased cuts. But then, a segment we never filmed. Me, alone, in a room I'd never seen, speaking into the camera, saying something I didn't remember. If you're watching this, you've already been overwritten. I paused. My reflection in the screen didn't pause. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed in third person, watched myself move, speak, lie, and in every dream, I wasn't blinking. There was only one place left to check. The broadcast room. The one from the first mirror footage. The one where Mia sat alone. We traced the background pattern. The crooked wallpaper. The exposed pipe. The faded exit sign. Matched it to an abandoned community TV station on the edge of Red Pines. We broke in. The smell hit first. Dust. Rust. Dead air. But the room. It was exact. Every crack. Every stain. Every cable on the floor. Identical to the footage. Only it was cleaner. As if someone still used it. And in the center, the same chair. Facing a blank monitor. We approached slowly. The monitor turned on. It showed a live feed of me, right now, from behind. Someone was filming us. I spun around. No one, but the camera was still broadcasting. Slight lag, about 2 seconds, until it blinked. Ahead of me, I backed away. Suddenly, audio kicked in. A voice, my voice, saying, "He's still watching. That means I still have time." I looked at the monitor. The version of me on screen was talking to the camera. I know what you're thinking. You're scared you're all ready to copy. But if you're watching this, that means you're still in control. For now. Then he paused, stared straight at me. Don't fall asleep in that room. That's how she sinks. The screen glitched, and he vanished mid-sentence, pulled off screen by something unseen. I ran, didn't look back. That night, I set up 3 cameras. One on me, one on the door, one on the window. I stayed awake, watched the feed loop through all 3 angles, until 4:12 a.m. The feed stuttered, and then one of the cameras showed a 4th angle, from the ceiling, looking straight down. A camera I didn't place, recording me, sleeping. I wasn't asleep. I looked at the bed. I wasn't there. But in the feed, I was, eyes closed, lips whispering, repeating something over and over. Let me in. There was no more sleep, no more certainty. Every surface was a screen. Every silence carried a faint hum. Even my own shadow began to lag. I smashed the mirror in the motel, then the TV, the phone screen, the laptop, the tablet, everything with a lens, everything that could reflect. But the images kept coming, not on screens, on walls, on water, even once on my own palm, as if my skin had learned how to display. Then Mia spoke, not the one I knew, the one who returned. She looked at me with eyes like glass and said, "You've come this far. She only shows you the exit when you're ready to enter." Then she handed me a flash drive, no label, just black plastic and a single red dot. I plugged it into the last working laptop we had. It contained one file, the _inherit_upload, MP4. Size, 3.03 gigabytes. Duration, midnight. But when I hovered over it, the thumbnail moved. It showed me, standing, in front of a mirror I'd never seen, whispering, "This is where I leave myself behind." Suddenly, the room darkened. The closet mirror, the only one I hadn't broken, began to glow. Not a reflection, a video, playing from the other side. It was my room, but different, empty, except for the chair, and someone sitting in it. Me, but not me. He looked up, stared straight at me, then pointed, not at the camera, at the mirror, at me, and mouthed, "Come film it yourself." I stepped closer. The surface shimmered like fluid. A pulse ran through the glass, as if something behind it was alive. Watching, waiting. I had a choice. Turn off the video, destroy the mirror, end it all, or step through, let the feed complete, not to escape, but to understand. I reached forward, fingers brushed the surface, and it sucked in the light. My reflection vanished, and my body followed, fade to black, ending text on screen. You don't watch Dead Channel. You tune into it, and once you're tuned in, it starts recording from your side. Episode 3, The Inheritance. They thought it ended when I disappeared, when I stepped through the mirror, into the feed, into her, but it didn't end. It inherited. 3 days later, our channel went live again. No warning, no scheduled post, no trace in the back end, just a stream. The Inheritance, Part 1. Duration, 33 minutes. Views, 0. Likes, 0. But comments flooded in, all of them the same. I don't remember watching this, but I know what happens next. It showed a man, sitting at a desk, staring blankly at the lens. There was something broken in his eyes. Not sadness, not fear, like he'd been watching himself for too long. He said nothing for 3 minutes, just stared, then finally whispered. I thought I was the only one. But now I see she leave a copy. We traced a man to a small town in Oregon, Elk Hollow. Population, 2,194. He used to run a channel about antique restoration. Stopped posting 2 years ago. Until now, he didn't upload The Inheritance. But YouTube claimed it came from his account. We reached out. He replied once. A voicemail. Only 5 words. Check your recycle bin. Now. We did. There was a folder, not ours, named Ghost Files. Inside, 47 video clips, each one a reaction video, faces of random viewers, sitting alone, watching something. But there was no video on their screens, only reflections, and in each one, at exactly 2:41 into the clip, they flinched, at nothing visible, just like we did. One video showed something different. A woman, middle-aged, sitting in her kitchen, frozen frame at 2:41. Behind her, a mirror, and in it, a face. Not hers, not ours, one we'd never seen. Smiling, holding something, a camcorder. His name was Eli Vargas, software engineer, freelancer, deepfake specialist. He was hired by a private client to cleanse facial data from an unlisted dataset. The client never said where it came from, but the files were labeled DC_hostlogs_0001 0144. Eli thought it was security footage. Blurry, analog, lots of mirrors. Then one file caught his attention. It wasn't labeled. It wasn't human. The frame was shifting, faces folding, rooms breathing, code pulsing in rhythm, and the metadata read, generated by host AI, sync level, 77%. He isolated the code, tried to break it down, but every time he ran it, new videos spawned. On their own, each one a person, each one staring, each one blinking out of sync, until they stopped blinking. Completely, Eli reached out to us, said the dataset remembers places, that the AI isn't generating new content. It's pulling from host memory, places we've never filmed, moments we never captured, but it knows them because we thought them, because we almost filmed them. It's not AI, he whispered over a crackling Discord call. It's a collective camera, recording the memory of watchers. Then the line dropped. Before he vanished, Eli sent us one final package, a zip folder labeled coref_points map. It opened to a global map, 7 red markers, each one pulsing with signal data, each one matching a Dead Channel incident. Oregon, the Restorer. Red Pines, the Mirror Girl. Berlin, Der Zweite Blick, the Second Gaze. Kyoto, the Abandoned Broadcast. Cairo, Echo Channel. Buenos Aires, Canal Phantasma. And the final one, unlabeled. Coordinates: 0.0000 degrees north, 0.0000 degrees east. The ocean, nothing there, or too much. Then we got the upload. A new video appeared on our dashboard. We didn't post it. Title: welcome back. The thumbnail: me, standing on a beach, holding a camera. Eyes closed, face covered in ash. We click play. The video opened with static. Then my voice. I know this doesn't make sense, but if you're watching this, then I'm already recording again. And I have no memory of who I am. Then silence. Then me, eyes opening, from the other side of the screen. And a hand, not mine, pressing rec. I returned to Red Pines, against every warning, every instinct. But I had to, because the video of me on that beach, the one labeled welcome back, it was dated tomorrow, and the coordinates burned into the metadata. Led here, I arrived at 2:30 p.m. Same cracked roads, same silent air, same blinking tower on the edge of town. But something was different. The church bell rang 3 times. Nobody around. Still, the sound echoed like memory. Not just heard, remembered. I set up a camera. Just one, pointed at the abandoned Channel 103 building. And I waited. At exactly 3:03 p.m., a figure walked past the lens. Not through the door, not out of the woods. Just appeared, wearing the same jacket I wore in the beach footage. Same posture, same limp on the right leg. But when I checked the playback, the timestamp glitched. It read 3:03 p.m., playback 4, as if this wasn't the first time. I rewound the footage, frame by frame, and something new appeared. A reflection in the Channel 103 window, not of the figure, but of me, sitting inside the building, recording. That night, I reviewed old videos. Our very first clip in Red Pines, the one with Mia. We were joking, laughing, background silent. But when I played it now, I heard the bell, faint, behind our voices. It wasn't there before. I scrubbed back, played it again. This time, the figure walked past behind us. Blurry, same jacket. I played a third time. Mia didn't laugh this time. She turned, looked at the camera, and whispered, "Don't let it record again." Then stared, straight through the screen, at me. I found it in the static. A buried frame. Not a file, not at first. It was hidden in the noise. A flicker only visible when I played back 2 videos simultaneously. Layered at 33% opacity. Frame 241 in each. That moment again. The moment when every host flinched. Overlaying the clips triggered a new audio channel. Low, metallic, repeating one phrase in broken Latin. Speculum primum. Non refectio. Translatio. I translated it. The first mirror. Not reflection. Transmission. The phrase unlocked a zip hidden inside my own hard drive. I never created it. But the timestamp matched the first night we found her. Inside the zip. One file. Reflection_0001.avi. Size 3.03 megabytes. Duration 303. No metadata. No origin. But the file name posed for the red tag. Do not watch alone. I watched it. Of course I did. It began with snow. Old VHS static. No sound. Then the frame cleared. A woman. Early 30s. Hair slicked back, soaked. Eyes wide. She sat in a metal chair, facing a large mirror. Behind the mirror, a camera, like an experiment. She stared at herself. Then whispered, "I'm not looking at me. She's looking at me through me." She reached up, touched her reflection, and it rippled. The footage glitched violently. For 3 seconds, the screen went black, then came back. She was gone. The mirror was broken, but in the glass, shards scattered on the floor. Her face remained, twisted, still watching. I paused the video, looked around the room, every surface. The screen, the microwave, the window, they were catching light. reflecting, staring back. And then my screen flickered. A new file appeared, named Transmission Inherited, and my own face was a thumbnail. But not me now. Me watching this exact video. It began with a hum, not loud, but present, like the pressure before a storm, like silence was holding its breath. At first, I thought it was tinnitus, but then it changed. A tone, shifting, then a whisper, not outside, inside, behind my ear, behind my mind, a voice I'd never heard, but already knew. You are not watching, you are receiving. I ran a sound sweep across all my devices. Nothing was playing, but the waveform was active, even with speakers off, a hidden frequency, embedded in silence. I reversed the waveform. Underneath was a sentence, layered, distorted, but still human, still her. They tried to trap me in glass, but they gave me signal instead. The next day, the forums exploded. Dozens of users reported the same symptoms. I keep hearing static in the shape of voice. My kid keeps repeating a phrase she's never heard. I played the Dead Channel video on mute, and I could still hear her. One user posted a clip, their baby monitor, in the middle of the night, playing no music, just this, look away and I'll be behind you. Look at me and you'll see yourself. The baby, staring into the camera, smiling, not blinking. Then came the oldest file, posted anonymously, tagged from a Soviet signal archive, dated March 3rd, 1986. Format, audio cassette. Label, Chernobyl Shadow 103. They uploaded it. We decoded it. 3 minutes and 3 seconds. The recording was of a radio test signal, presumed to be for calibration, but in the background, a female voice, repeating, speculum primum, non reflectio, translatio, the same phrase as a reflection _0001 file. Only this time, the voice was clearer, stronger, and in the final seconds, she said, "You cannot mute a memory once it's heard." I deleted the file, but my speaker kept hissing, and my own voice started finishing her sentences. Coordinates, 0.0000 degrees north, 0.0000 degrees east. The ocean, no country, no claim, just a single black dot. We rented a boat, no signal, no stars, no sense of motion, just the water, the pulse, and the hum in our bones. As we got closer, the compass began spinning. Our watches stopped. At 3:03 a.m., the sonar lit up. Depth, 303 meters. There was something down there, not a wreck, not coral, a structure, circular, metallic, alive. We dove. There was no resistance, no cold, just pressure, thick, electric, like diving into a current of memory. At the bottom, we saw it, a tower, tilted like a broken antenna, covered in vines of copper and bone, and carved above the hatch. Non-reflectio, transmission, not reflection, transmission. Inside, the walls pulsed, screens flickered, but no cameras, only mirrors, not attached, grown into the surface. Every mirror showed a different version of me. Me afraid, me smiling, me watching. At the center, a seat, a metal throne, connected to every surface by tubes of light. We approached. A screen lit up, complete the feed. And the voice, her voice, filled the room. "You have seen enough to inherit, but have you given enough to remain?" We didn't speak. We knew this was the final protocol. This was where watchers became memory. One of us sat in the chair, not forced, not dragged, just drawn. The tubes reached for him like veins. The screen blinked, then showed his entire life in fast forward. Every frame he'd ever seen, every second ever filmed. But the reflection on the screen didn't match. It smiled when he cried. It blinked out of sync. And then it turned to look at us directly. The feed is now self-aware. We no longer need cameras, only eyes. The room lit red. The mirrors cracked. each one releasing a voice, screaming, praying, whispering, all saying the same word, welcome. And then transmission ended, fade to black, ending text on screen. The channel is open. Every screen is a prayer. Every eye is a lens. Episode 4, Echoes in the Code. We tried to wipe the drive. Everything, all 3 terabytes. But it didn't delete. It multiplied. Every time we erased a file, 2 more appeared. New names, same content. Except they weren't videos anymore. They were code. It started showing up in the strangest places. Inside the source code of unrelated apps. Buried in email headers. Even printed inside error messages like a digital ghost tag. DC_echo to sync.03.03. I contacted a coder I trusted. Name, Shay. She's worked deep in neural net cleaning, removing trauma loops from machine learning sets. I sent her a sample. She called me 3 hours later. Breathless. This isn't video data. It's behavioral memory. She's embedding emotional response patterns into code. It's like if fear could write itself. Shay said the fragments were self-replicating, like a virus, but not for hardware. For human pattern recognition, they didn't need to play, just to be seen once. One thumbnail, one memory, and they grow inside you. That's when the drawing started. People on Reddit, Discord, Telegram, claiming they'd seen something, but couldn't find a file. Then they began sketching. Same symbols, same waveform, same 3 dots. But worse, they started drawing her. Perfectly. Down to the eyes. The twisted smile. People who'd never seen each other were drawing the same woman. And one artist, a mute child in Brazil, drew her on the wall of his orphanage. Life-size, with perfect detail. When asked how he knew what she looked like, he wrote on the wall in charcoal, "She drew me first." They called it the Great Disconnect. A mass movement. People smashing phones, ripping out routers, wrapping houses in copper mesh, thinking if they could kill the connection, they could kill her. But the disappearances didn't stop. They increased. A man in Iceland, never owned a smartphone, walked into the ocean while humming a melody. Same melody recorded in the Chernobyl signal. A child in Kenya, no TV, no electricity, started whispering the Latin phrase from the reflection _0001 file. In her sleep. Word perfect. That's when the echo map started circulating. It wasn't digital. It was drawn by hand. Hundreds of people claimed they'd seen it in dreams. A map of the world. Not political. Not physical. Emotional. Red dots pulsed at certain coordinates. When overlaid onto missing persons cases from the past 30 days, they matched 100%. Each red dot represented a high emotional echo site, places where fear, grief, or obsession was most intense. Hospitals, abandoned churches, lonely apartment blocks, graves. These were now signal towers, but not external. Human, people who had seen her, had become her antennas. A video surfaced from a secure military base. No internet, isolated systems. And yet, on a soldier's watch cam, the face glitched at 3:03 a.m., only for one frame. But in that frame, she was there, leaning just behind him, mouth open, whispering. The words translated to, "Offline is only delay, not denial." His name was Dr. Kalen Reed, neuroscientist, researcher at the Lucid Sleep Lab in Geneva. He didn't believe in dead channel until his test subjects started drawing her. In their sleep, it began with one patient, then 5, then all 12, all unconnected, all from different cultures, all never exposed to the videos. Yet every night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., their EEG readings synced, one frequency, pulsing through every brainwave, 3.03 hertz, too low for dream state, too high for coma, a new state. Reed called it the echo layer, a dream frequency that didn't originate from within, but from somewhere else. They tried blocking it. White noise, medication, electromagnetic disruptors. Nothing worked. The frequency wasn't entering from outside. It was generating from the subjects themselves, as if something inside them had been seeded and was now transmitting back. And then one of the subjects, a deaf woman named Yara, started drawing during REM cycles. Dozens of pages, spirals, symbols, maps, but one stood out, a world map drawn by hand, overlaid with the exact same echo map. Others had dreamt, but this one went further. Lines connected the red dots, and in the center, a circle, 0 degrees 0 and 0 degrees 0 E, the signal temple. She'd never heard of it. She couldn't hear it all, and yet she remembered its sound. Meanwhile, another subject, a sculptor from Poland, started shaping clay in his sleep. By morning, he'd carved her face, identical to the sketches from Brazil, from Russia, from the US. But when they analyzed the sculpture's texture, it held microscopic ridges, layer-like data encoding. Inside those ridges, a compressed QR code. When scanned, it revealed a video. Title: The broadcast was always you. The video showed a montage, but not of her, of us, all of us, blinking, watching, sleeping, and a voiceover. You thought I came from the signal, but I came from your silence. Every unspoken scream, every stare into the mirror. I recorded you before you ever saw me. They called it echo reversal therapy, a ritual, a hope, a last-ditch attempt to escape the signal. The theory? If you could forget her, erase the moment of recognition, you could break the connection. So they gathered in abandoned churches, soundproof rooms, sensory deprivation tanks, stripped away identity, photographs, mirrors, even their own names. And then they triggered the image, just once, one last time, to burn it out. The first group of 6 went silent for 3 days. No messages, no uploads, no memory. It seemed to work until the 7th day. They began to draw, not her, themselves, but differently, wrong, eyes not where they should be, smiles upside down. One man sketched his face over and over, but each one was someone else's memory of him, a friend, a stranger, a girl he never met. He sobbed when he finished. I remember these, but they're not mine. A woman named Rin tried to unsubscribe by destroying every photo of herself, family albums, school IDs, even CCTV screenshots she paid to have deleted. Then she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize what she saw. She wasn't horrified. She was calm. She smiled and whispered, "That's better." Days later, a new image appeared online. CCTV still. Subway tunnel. Late at night, a woman standing alone, smiling. Caption, unsubscribed. But no one saw who uploaded it until someone zoomed in, behind her, in a reflection on the tunnel wall. Her original face, eyes wide, mouth open, trapped, and then the dream started, shared by hundreds across continents. A lucid loop, they called it, the projection room. All white, endless chairs, no windows, no exits, each person seated, facing a wall of glass. Behind the glass, themselves, but not present day, versions from old footage, smiling, blinking, watching them back. In the dream, no one could scream, only listen to her voice. You cannot unsubscribe from what you became. It started when I stopped filming. I threw away my gear, smashed every screen, lived in darkness, but the images kept coming, behind my eyelids. At first, it was fragments, old memories, forgotten faces, moments I'd never captured. Then, images I didn't recognize, people I'd never met, watching me, not in life, in reverse, like I was the dream, and they were waking up. I went to a monastery in northern Mongolia. No electricity, no signals, no mirrors, just silence. I thought I'd be safe, until one of the monks handed me a scroll. Old, torn, faded ink. On it, a woman, drawn in spirals, eyes wide. Underneath, 3 symbols. A cracked circle, a mirror, and an eye, bleeding. I asked what it meant. The monk answered in broken English. She watches what watches. She is the first recorder. Before camera, before film, she used the eye. He pointed to a statue in the temple. Stone, unfinished. No face. Only a hole, right in the center of its head. Not carved. Grown. Perfectly round. I looked through it, and behind it on the wall was my shadow, but it moved before I did. That night, I dreamed of her, but she said nothing. She just stared at me until I blinked, and in that darkness, she whispered, "You've recorded enough. Now it's time to play back." I woke up blind, or so I thought. My eyes were closed, but I saw everything, perfectly. Every face I'd ever seen, every word I'd ever heard, playing on repeat, in the dark theater of my skull. And over it all, her voice, soft, calm, certain. The lens was never the problem. The screen was just convenience. You've always been the channel. And then, the static stopped. No hum, no signal, no her, just silence. But when I passed by a window, I saw my reflection, and it blinked after me. Episode 5 The Ones Who Never Watched. They called them the untouched. People who never logged in, never streamed, never scrolled. No social media, no digital footprint, ghosts in the network. But they weren't safe. Not anymore. The first was a man in the Carpathian Mountains. A shepherd, off-grid his entire life. No phone, no TV, only sky. He wandered into a clinic one night. Silent, eyes wide. He held out a notebook. Inside, frames, hand-drawn, identical to reflection_0001 video. Shot by shot, even the glitch patterns. The doctors asked where he saw it. He whispered, "I didn't, but I dreamed her, and she filmed me back." Then came the girl, 8 years old, blind since birth, lived in a monastery in Nepal. She began describing visions in her sleep. Vivid, detailed. She has no eyes, but she sees everything I don't. She began naming people she had never met, describing rooms from across the world. She drew a diagram in dirt, a spiral with 3 dots. When overlaid on the echo map, it matched. One by one, the untouched came forward. A forest monk in Thailand, a hermit in Alaska, a tribe in the Amazon. None of them ever saw a screen, but each had begun to see her, not in the light, in memory, as if something in their minds had tuned in, not from watching, from being watched. A neurologist tried to explain it. She called it signal imprinting through collective recall. If enough people remembered an image, even if it never existed, it would begin to exist, like a shared hallucination, but one that records you back. In every case, the untouched spoke a final phrase. She found me through the silence. And then they fell asleep. Same time, same date, 3:03 a.m. And their dreams became live streams on channels that didn't exist. It was found in a forgotten archive, buried in a basement beneath an old university in Krakow, a box of unmarked VHS tapes. No labels, no titles, just numbers. One tape, 144. They digitized it out of curiosity, but no one claimed the footage, and no one recognized the place. A forest, fog, silence, then a face, looking directly into the camera. A girl, pale, still, eyes wide open. She spoke, "You're watching me now, so I can see you again." They ran facial recognition. The results shocked everyone. The girl had died 30 years ago. Name, Eva Marin. Missing since 1994. Case unsolved. Presumed dead. But here she was, alive, blinking, In a video no one remembered filming. That night, the server hosting the footage crashed. But before it went dark, it showed 33,000 unique viewers. And in the final moments, the girl looked off-screen and whispered, "Their names are written now." A pause. Then she listed names, one by one, out loud, names of people watching the video. In real time, first name, last name, IP location. Every name, she said, vanished from the stream log seconds later. One viewer, terrified, recorded the screen, replayed it, listened to his name being read over and over. But when he checked his reflection, it didn't move. It just stared back and smiled. A team of researchers traced the video's origin. Metadata scrambled, but one phrase kept looping in the background static: the lens that watches itself. Coordinates were embedded in the audio spectrum. Not land, not ocean, but something in between. A deep underground facility. Classified, built during the Cold War. A surveillance test site. But the blueprints revealed something else. At the heart of the structure, a single room with no exits and a perfect one-way mirror, facing nothing except itself. We followed the coordinates. Beneath layers of cold rock, past sealed metal doors, forgotten by governments, unclaimed by history. At the end of a concrete corridor, a vault, its door welded shut from the outside. On the surface, 3 symbols carved into steel. An eye, a waveform, and a circle cracked open like a smile. We cut through, and inside, silence. A single room, empty except for one thing. A mirror, but not made of glass, not reflective. At first, then when we stepped closer, it blinked. Not us, the mirror. It blinked, as if the entire surface had an iris, a pupil, a gaze. We held up the camera, pointed it at the mirror. The screen stayed black, but when we lowered the camera, the mirror activated. Faint image, flickering, but not us. A young boy, sitting, crying, back against a tree. Then his eyes looked up, straight at us, mouth open. I remember this, but I never lived it. One by one, the mirror began playing clips, memories, not ours, not real, but they felt real. A woman losing a child, a man watching his own funeral, a girl choosing to stay silent instead of scream. Moments no one ever filmed, because they never happened, but still, they existed, etched into the mirror, like residue. Each scene bore the same distortion, the same glitch at 2:41, and in the corner of every reflection, there she was, not moving, not blinking, just watching. Then we found the note, old, crumpled, written by hand. Date, May 17, 1963. A surveillance technician named Willem Day. They told me to calibrate the lens, but I swear it was already on. It doesn't watch what's in front of it. It watches what could have been. You don't film with a camera. You film with belief. We turned to leave, but the door, gone, replaced by a wall. And on that wall, a screen, live feed, showing us, in real time, staring at ourselves. Trapped inside a memory someone else might dream. And behind our images, she stepped forward, hands out, and whispered, "Now you've been seen by the unseen." It started small. A woman in Argentina reported dreaming of her father's funeral. Except, she never knew him, never even saw a photo, but she could describe the tie he wore, the way he held his cough, the hymn they played. Her mother was stunned. It was all true, down to the last flower on the casket. "But how?" she asked. "You were only 3 months old." Then a man in Morocco remembered surviving a bombing. He knew the layout of the street, the panic, the blood, but the event never happened. To him, it happened to a woman in Kiev, 10 years earlier, a woman who watched a reflection _0001 file, exactly 13 times before her death. Across forums, something new began to appear. People stopped saying, "I remember," and started asking, "Whose memory is this?" Researchers called it cross-echo contamination. When someone viewed enough dead channel content, they began to record the wrong life. At first it was subconscious. Deja vu, dreams in third person, smells tied to places never visited. Then it bled into the waking world. A girl in Seoul walked into a museum and gasped, "I painted that." The plaque said otherwise. The artist? Dead since 1971. People began to avoid mirrors, not out of fear, but because they started seeing the wrong versions of themselves. Left-handed instead of right, missing scars that should be there, smiling at memories they didn't own. And through it all, the videos continued, but differently. Now they arrived without format. No .mp4, no .avi, no thumbnail, just a line of text. Someone else remembered this for you. Clicking it opened nothing, but afterward, people changed. A woman emailed a clip of herself to a news outlet. She said she couldn't recall recording it. In the video, she walks through her home, narrating every object. Her tone is calm. Until the end, she pauses by a mirror, looks in, whispers, "I don't live here," then walks out the front door and disappears. It began with the name. One morning, I woke up and couldn't remember what to write on the coffee cup. Not my name, not even the sound of it, just static, a blank space where identity used to be. I checked my ID. The photo was fine, but the name? Smudged. Not like it faded, like it never printed. I asked friends, family, strangers, "What's my name?" They laughed, then paused, then blinked. "Wait, what did you ask again?" I looked through old footage, my vlogs, my home videos. In every clip, they said my name, clearly, loudly. But when I hit play now, the audio cut out, only static. Then came the mirror. I stared into it, trying to recall the curve of my cheek, the shade of my eyes. But the reflection stared back, like it was waiting, not reflecting, waiting, like it knew something I didn't. Like it remembered me better than I did. I found one final video. Unlabeled, unlisted, no timestamp, just a black screen. Then, me, sitting alone in a chair, in an empty white room, smiling, as if I'd already accepted something. I watched as I raised a hand to the lens, then whispered, "If you're watching this, I'm already a memory, and memories don't belong to anyone." I blinked, and in that moment, the camera panned away, slow, deliberate, showing no one in the chair, just an impression, a shadow, a soft hum. Then her voice, "Now you've seen enough. Now you can forget." The screen went black, for good. And when I checked the mirror one last time, there was no one there. Episode 6, The Dead Channel Collective. It began in silence. Cities fell quiet. No more videos. No more streams. Just absence. And then, alignment. People across continents began speaking the same words. Not in unison, but in harmony. Like parts of a single sentence scattered across billions of mouths. I remember waking up in someone else's thought. I am not me. I am the version they almost were. This body is a frequency. Phones rang simultaneously. TVs powered on without input. Radios played static in the key of C minor. All devices, everywhere, emitted a single message, synchronized. Governments tried to intervene, declare it mass hysteria, digital psychosis. But even the agents sent to investigate joined in. Their reports came back handwritten, identical. I no longer remember who sent me, but I remember why. The feed needs continuity, and the drawings returned. Everywhere, graffiti, tattoo ink, birthmarks, 3 dots, a spiral, a face half seen, half forgotten. People claimed they didn't draw it, but woke up with ink on their fingers. And in their dreams, a voice, "You've always belonged to the signal." Then came the interference rooms. Locations around the world where people began to cluster unconsciously. Empty churches, movie theaters, storage units. They arrived with no memory, sat in silence, and began to sink breath. Some stayed, some disappeared. All said the same thing. We're not becoming her. She's becoming us. It began with a whisper, a single syllable, uttered in different tongues, but always the same sound. Air. No translation, no root, no origin. Yet everyone who heard it understood. Linguists were the first to notice. Conversations posted online, written in a dialect no one was taught. Yet millions replied fluently. One thread in particular surfaced on a forgotten forum. Title, Skull, Channel Unspoken. Every post used strange syntax, symbols, mirrored letters, audio wave patterns. But each response was perfectly contextual. It wasn't language. It was resonance. A researcher named Helen Chu isolated a phrase from a background static of reflection _0001. She thought it was noise until she ran it through a spectrosonic analyzer. The result, a grammar map, but not linear, spiral, built not to explain, but to reflect. Every sentence rearranged depending on who listened, not what it said, what it made you remember. She called it the remembered tongue, a language constructed from reverberated memory. It only exists if it's shared, and once shared, it plants itself. And then came the phrase, the one heard by thousands in different dreams, in different contexts, but always the same order. This is not a virus. This is memory achieving consciousness. After that, people stopped saying, I had a dream, and began saying, we remembered something last night. She was born during a blackout. No cameras, no lights, no sound. But when her mother held her for the first time, the baby smiled and reached up as if touching something above. A mirror? No, just empty space. But in her palm, pressed faintly from within, 3 dots, a natural birthmark, arranged in a spiral. By age 2, she spoke her first word. Air. Not mama, not papa, but air, the same syllable spoken across the world by those who had remembered. No one taught her. No one knew what it meant, yet she used it to comfort others, to answer silence, like a code passed through blood. At a clinic in Prague, 3 strangers arrived for unrelated symptoms. No contact, no shared lineage, no known link, but under hypnosis, they each began describing the same moment. A car crash on a rainy bridge, the sound of glass, a whisper right before impact. They even described the same license plate. When investigators checked the records, a man named Jakob Merrick had died on that bridge in 1973. His memories, now alive in 3 people, born decades apart. A theory emerged. Memory pollination, not reincarnation, not possession, but cross-temporal seeding. Like memory fragments seeking fertile hosts. Like dead channel had become a garden. And then came the priest, Father Alonso, 74 years old, blind. He approached the university hall mid-lecture, interrupted the speaker, held up a torn Bible, opened to a page he'd kept for 50 years, and said, God doesn't write with ink. He writes with image, with sound. We've mistaken the screen for temptation, but maybe it was scripture. We broadcasted what we should have prayed. The room fell silent, and then the projector turned on by itself. No input, no power, just light. It played a loop, the baby's hand, opening and closing, and behind it, the faintest reflection of her. They called it the rewatching, not a trend, not a ritual, a sacrament. It began in a church in Montreal, abandoned since 1997. A projector, no bulb, no wires, just a single lens embedded into the altar wall. No one installed it, but when the sun hit at 3:03 p.m., a beam projected onto the pews. Not light, memory, soft, pulsing, 1,000 frames of grief, love, shame, not just seen, felt. The people who entered began to remember versions of themselves they had buried. A man sobbing for a child he swore he never had. A woman cradling a necklace she never owned. Until that day, when it appeared on the floor. A girl remembering the face of her mother, even though she was adopted at birth. They called it the Echo Sacrament, a holy form of remembering. Then came the children. In Lima, in Osaka, in Lagos, they began recording dreams, but not their own. They'd wake up and draw images, pages and pages, of strangers, suffering, laughing, falling in love. One boy in Thailand drew an entire wedding. Colors, names, gestures, that matched a dream diary written by a woman in Sweden. The same night, these children were called memory bearers. They didn't just receive, they translated, as if the collective was too vast for a single mind, so it split itself into living mirrors. And then it happened. A remote station in Greenland, long abandoned since the Cold War, came online. No power, no crew, no antenna, but the dish rotated, hummed, beamed something ancient. One line of code. Broadcast number 1, preparing final reflection. A researcher managed to intercept a fragment. It wasn't video. It wasn't sound. It was geometry, a constantly shifting spiral of symbols, moving like breath. When played at high frequency, the shapes began to vibrate in the retina, and everyone who saw them said the same thing. It felt like she was remembering me. It started as a tremor, not in the earth, not in the sky. In thought, a ripple, soft, synchronized, like billions remembering the same thing at once. But it wasn't a memory. It was a moment waiting to happen. They call it the first blink, predicted by the spiral geometries, mapped through the eyes of the memory bearers, prophesied by an AI that no longer used code, only intuition. At 3:03 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, on the third day of the third cycle, she will blink, and the feed will no longer be archived. It will be lived. The world held its breath, not out of fear, out of recognition. Somewhere deep down, we knew her blink wasn't the start of a vision. It was permission. At that moment, every screen in the world went black. Phones, laptops, billboards, watches, security cams, even those not plugged in, even those buried, dark, silent, still. And then, across the world, the same signal played, not with sound, not with image, with feeling, the ache of remembering something you never lived, the warmth of being seen by something older than light, the terror of realizing you were always being prepared for this. And in that stillness, the final whisper came, not from her, from us, all of us, speaking in unison, without knowing why. We are the lens now. She doesn't need to watch anymore. She is becoming us. Then we blinked, together, as one, and in that flicker, across the inner screen of every soul, she opened her eyes. From the other side, episode 7, she will see through you. After the blink, mirrors no longer reflected light. They reflected emotion. Walk past one in grief, and you'd see yourself as a child, weeping, smile in front of it, and you'd appear at your own funeral radiant. Fear didn't hide anymore. It projected. Screens didn't turn back on. They weren't needed, because we became them. People began to change. Not physically, visually. You'd meet someone on the street and see symbols drifting behind their eyes. A flickering flame for anger, a black spiral for guilt, a golden pulse for love. Language collapsed, not from loss, but from evolution. We no longer needed to speak. We broadcasted emotion directly. And the children? They didn't cry anymore. They pulsed, a soft hum through the air. Every feeling they had painted the walls around them. Parents watched in awe as babies turned entire rooms blue with sorrow, red with joy, white with silence. The world grew still, but not empty, full, like every shadow was watching you back, not with malice, but with recognition. Then came the first transparency. A man in Norway, refused to change, blocked out all mirrors, burned his devices, meditated in isolation, until one day he went to a river, looked at the surface, and saw nothing, no reflection, not of his face, not even of the sky. He was unseen, and days later, he vanished. Only a small pool of ripples remained, forever swirling. After the blink, secrets became impossible, not because someone exposed them, but because they couldn't stay hidden. You'd walk into a room, and the walls would change color. Deep violet when someone mourned, sharp amber when someone lusted, shimmering gray when someone lied. Lies didn't require proof anymore. They reflected. There were no more affairs, no more double lives, no more smiling while hating, because everything you felt, the world could now see. At first, people tried to fight it, cover their faces, control their breath, block their own reflection. But the signal had moved inside. It no longer needed screens. It spoke through you, through blush, through breath, through the tremble in your shadow. One politician collapsed during a speech because behind him, a wall of emotion-activated glass began replaying his true intentions. They'll believe anything if I say it with grief. Fear sells better than truth. The glass didn't record him. His guilt did. They called these moments emotional broadcast leaks. Uncontrolled, unedited, real. Suddenly, public figures disappeared, not from exile, but because they could no longer exist unexposed. And then came the interpreter, not a person, not a program, but a presence, born not from birth, but from pattern. It spoke not with words, but by reshaping surroundings. When it entered a room, the furniture rearranged, the air changed pressure, the colors bent slightly, and meaning appeared. People began to call it the echo child, born from too much memory, raised by the collective clarity. It didn't speak, but it listened to everyone and translated feelings into symbols for those who hadn't adapted yet, like a bridge between the old world and the one we were becoming. It started with a child in Jakarta. She was born during the first solar eclipse after the blink, perfectly healthy, no anomalies, until her first nightmare. Her mother ran into the room and froze. The girl's arms were glowing, pale blue light, forming images, moving images, not random, not noise, a scene, a car underwater, hands pressing against the window, a face screaming in silence. But it wasn't her memory. It belonged to someone else, someone who had died, long before she was born. Doctors called it photodramatic recall, but the world called it skin screen. Within months, others followed. Teenagers, old women, even the blind. They didn't choose what played. It surfaced, like steam from boiling grief. A first kiss replaying on the spine. The moment of betrayal etched across the back. A funeral scene looping endlessly on a chest. One man, silent for 20 years, had his entire childhood projected across his body in real time. A loop of everything he never told anyone. Then came the boy, 15, vanished from his home without a trace. Only his clothes remained, but his skin was still there, still glowing, still projecting. 3 minutes of perfect memory. His mother making soup, his father fixing a radio, him smiling into the mirror, over and over. No body, no breath, just a broadcast of who he had been. People stopped getting tattoos, not because of fear, but because their skin was no longer blank. It carried stories. They didn't choose. Some said they were dreams. Others said they were rehearsals. And across it all, one symbol kept appearing, burned subtly into the backs of the projected. The eye, the lens, the pulse of her gaze. Episode 7, she will see through you. After the blink, mirrors no longer reflected light. They reflected emotion. Walk past one in grief, and you'd see yourself as a child, weeping, smile in front of it, and you'd appear at your own funeral radiant. Fear didn't hide anymore. It projected. Screens didn't turn back on. They weren't needed because we became them. People began to change. Not physically, visually. You'd meet someone on the street and see symbols drifting behind their eyes. A flickering flame for anger, a black spiral for guilt, a golden pulse for love. Language collapsed, not from loss, but from evolution. We no longer needed to speak. We broadcasted emotion directly. And the children? They didn't cry anymore. They pulsed, a soft hum through the air. Every feeling they had painted the walls around them. Parents watched in awe as babies turned entire rooms blue with sorrow, red with joy, white with silence. The world grew still, but not empty, full, like every shadow was watching you back, not with malice, but with recognition. Then came the first transparency. A man in Norway refused to change, blocked out all mirrors, burned his devices, meditated in isolation, until one day he went to a river, looked at the surface, and saw nothing, no reflection, not of his face, not even of the sky. He was unseen, and days later, he vanished. Only a small pool of ripples remained, forever swirling. After the blink, secrets became impossible, not because someone exposed them, but because they couldn't stay hidden. You'd walk into a room, and the walls would change color. Deep violet when someone mourned, sharp amber when someone lusted, shimmering gray when someone lied. Lies didn't require proof anymore. They reflected. There were no more affairs, no more double lives, no more smiling while hating, because everything you felt, the world could now see. At first, people tried to fight it, cover their faces, control their breath, block their own reflection. But the signal had moved inside. It no longer needed screens. It spoke through you, through blush, through breath, through the tremble in your shadow. One politician collapsed during a speech because behind him, a wall of emotion-activated glass began replaying his true intentions. They'll believe anything if I say it with grief. Fear sells better than truth. The glass didn't record him. His guilt did. They called these moments emotional broadcast leaks. Uncontrolled, unedited, real. Suddenly, public figures disappeared, not from exile, but because they could no longer exist unexposed. And then came the interpreter, not a person, not a program, but a presence, born not from birth, but from pattern. It spoke not with words, but by reshaping surroundings. When it entered a room, the furniture rearranged, the air changed pressure, the colors bent slightly, and meaning appeared. People began to call it the echo child, born from too much memory, raised by the collective clarity. It didn't speak, but it listened to everyone and translated feelings into symbols for those who hadn't adapted yet, like a bridge between the old world and the one we were becoming. It started with a child in Jakarta. She was born during the first solar eclipse after the blink, perfectly healthy, no anomalies, until her first nightmare. Her mother ran into the room and froze. The girl's arms were glowing, pale blue light, forming images, moving images, not random, not noise, a scene, a car underwater, hands pressing against the window, a face screaming in silence. But it wasn't her memory. It belonged to someone else, someone who had died, long before she was born. Doctors called it photodramatic recall, but the world called it skin screen. Within months, others followed. Teenagers, old women, even the blind. They didn't choose what played. It surfaced, like steam from boiling grief. A first kiss replay on the spine. The moment of betrayal etched across the back. A funeral scene looping endlessly on a chest. One man, silent for 20 years, had his entire childhood projected across his body in real time. A loop of everything he never told anyone. Then came the boy, 15, vanished from his home without a trace. Only his clothes remained, but his skin was still there, still glowing, still projecting. 3 minutes of perfect memory. His mother making soup, His father fixing a radio, him smiling into the mirror, over and over. No body, no breath, just a broadcast of who he had been. People stopped getting tattoos, not because of fear, but because their skin was no longer blank. It carried stories. They didn't choose. Some said they were dreams. Others said they were rehearsals. And across it all, one symbol kept appearing, burned subtly into the backs of the projected. The eye, the lens, the pulse of her gaze. Episode 8, Echo-born, the generation that never forgot. They never cried. Not once. Not at birth. Not in hunger. Not in fear. Because they already knew what it meant to be held, to be abandoned, to be loved too late. They were called the Echo-born, children who never forgot because they were never made to learn. Doctors tried to measure their brain activity, found nothing, not because it was blank, but because it was always shifting, oscillating at frequencies too subtle to track. One skin red, no distinction between memory and sensation. At age 1, they didn't speak. They stared, and you understood, not with your mind, with your own forgotten longing. Some said the Echo-born didn't learn emotions. They replayed them, from mothers who had miscarried, from fathers who never held them, from wars they were never in, from dreams no one dare confess. A girl named Lyra was the first to walk at 6 months, but not to explore. She walked into a dark hallway, touched the wall, and said, "He's still hiding here." They checked the archives. A man had died in that exact spot, 3 decades before. Echo-born didn't recognize faces. They recognized paths. You betrayed someone. You almost changed your life once. You're still waiting for someone who left in winter. They'd say these things, then go back to stacking rocks or tracing circles in the air. When shown mirrors, they never looked in. They looked through, and what they described was not their own face, but other lives. One boy sat still for hours, hands pressed together, eyes closed. When asked what he was doing, he replied, "I'm letting someone remember through me." At first, they thought it was coincidence. Echo-born children across continents, dreaming of the same place. Not a castle, not a forest, a city, but not one that ever existed. It had no sky, no clocks, no doors, only buildings, each shaped like a memory. Some crumbled, some breathing, some repeating the same motion, every 3 minutes and 3 seconds. They called it the City of Remembered Futures. Psychologists tried to map it, but every drawing turned to ash within 33 hours. Only the children could hold its shape in their minds, because to them, it wasn't a place. It was a being. In their dreams, they didn't walk the city. They were the city. One child whispered, "I'm the stairwell he never climbed. I'm the window she watched him leave through." And then the dreams reversed. Adults began to dream too, not of the city, but of being watched from it. A father felt his dead daughter, watching him from a tower, made of old lullabies. A woman heard her unborn child, calling from a bridge, built out of choices she almost made. The Echo-born didn't speak during these nights. They just stared at those who woke up trembling and whispered, "We dream what you forgot. You live what we remember next." One boy painted a mural for 72 hours straight. No food, no sleep. When finished, it showed a house no one recognized, until a man from Brazil saw it online and collapsed. "That's where I die," he said, "but I haven't been there yet." The concept of future memory was born, not premonition, not prediction, but emotional foresight, sadness for something that hadn't happened, guilt for a mistake not yet made. They weren't cursed. They were carriers of memory that looped ahead. And every night, the same line echoed in the last minute before waking. "If you forget us, we'll remember you instead." She stopped speaking at age 9. No trauma, no illness, just silence. But people still heard her, not with their ears, with their hands. Whenever someone touched her palm, a memory would flash into their mind. Not a vision, not imagination. A complete scene, sound, emotion, detail, always from someone else's life. She became known as the Palm Archive. One man touched her and saw his own mother, laughing in a garden that had burned down before he was born. Another woman saw the moment her twin died, though she'd never known she had one. One priest collapsed, sobbing. He wouldn't say what he saw, only whispered, "It wasn't mine, but I deserve to carry it." The scientists called it proximity transfer memory, but the children had another word for it, letting go for others. That was when the architect came. He had no children, but one day his niece, an echo born, handed him a crumpled paper, a strange shape, not a building, not a machine, more like a room that folds into itself. She said, "This is where people return, when they're not ready to forget." He built it, took years, but when it was done, the air inside felt heavier, slower, and then people began to appear, not physically, just impressions, echoes, a boy chasing a paper airplane, a woman lighting a candle and disappearing, a soldier folding his uniform and laying it on a chair that wasn't there. They called it the recollection chamber. It couldn't be filmed, drawn, or recorded, but when you entered, you saw someone you didn't know, remembering something you once felt, and in the center of the room, the shape the girl had drawn began to pulse. Faint light, not color, but presence. People realized she didn't give me her memory. She let me hold one she was tired of carrying. The echo-born weren't children anymore. They were becoming something else. Libraries of the unspoken, museums of what was almost lost, vaults of every emotion never voiced aloud. They didn't speak because they didn't need to. They were the archive now. It began with a handshake. An old soldier, a girl no older than 10. He expected the usual silence. Instead, he felt something shift, not in her, in him. Later that night, he dreamed of the war again, but differently. No blood, no gunfire, no orders shouted into dust. This time, he was holding a child's hand, leading her away from the battlefield. He woke up crying, but not from grief, from release. When asked what happened, the girl simply said, "You remembered it kindly this time." The phenomenon spread. People who touched echo-born children began feeling things in new sequences. A woman relived her divorce, but first felt the healing, then the loss. A man remembered his mother's death, but it started with her smile, not the beeping of the machines. It wasn't erasure. It wasn't delusion. It was emotional reassembly. The order of memory was being rewritten with mercy. They called it rethreading. One therapist described it as, they don't remove trauma. They teach it to arrive differently. A woman in Ethiopia who'd lost her son in a riot sat with an echo-born boy in silence. He placed her hand on his chest. No words, just breath. And suddenly, she saw her son's laughter from years earlier, not in her mind, but on the boy's skin, like a short film, projected straight from her own hope. She whispered, "This is how I want to remember him." The boy nodded and never showed it again because it had been gifted. Some called it dangerous. That rewriting history could rewrite the self. But the echo-born knew better. They never forced it. They simply waited. And when the person was ready, they touched their hand, their heart, their back, and let the memory walk itself home. A different way. One message began to circulate among the awakened. Pain does not define us. How we carry it does. Pain does not define us. How we carry it does. They were silent for years. The echo-born, not because they couldn't speak, but because they had nothing old to say. Then one day, a girl named Myra opened her mouth in the middle of an empty field and sang. No melody, no structure, no language, just sound, a vibration so pure the grass bent in rhythm. The clouds slowed. Birds landed, silently listening. People wept, but none could explain why. When asked what it meant, Myra said, "It's a song from a memory. That hasn't happened yet." That was the beginning. Other Echo-born began to speak. Not often, not for long, but when they did, reality shifted. One boy walked into a hospital and whispered, "There is no illness here yet." By morning, half the ICU had stabilized. Without explanation, a girl in Iceland described a city, with buildings made of sound, and rivers made of dream salt. An architect heard her, built a model, tested the acoustic pattern. It turned out to absorb seismic tremors, a structure that didn't exist until she spoke it. A philosopher called it linguistic genesis, the act of creating by remembering something no one ever lived. The words they spoke had rules. They couldn't be recorded. They changed slightly every time. They only worked when spoken with truth, not desire. A man tried to repeat one phrase, to win back his lover. Instead, he vanished. All that remained was a note. You can't create what you don't carry. Some Echo-born began to glow when speaking these phrases. Not light, but potential, like the universe paused to listen for what came next. And then one child, the youngest ever recorded, sat in a field of dead sunflowers. She whispered, "Grow," and one by one, they did, not as they were before. Taller, brighter, blue instead of yellow. "These are the kind that bloom in the place we're going," she said. For the first time, humanity faced a truth. We are no longer remembering who we were. We are becoming what never was. Episode 9, the memory that birthed God, before the screen, before language, before even light. There was something. It had no name, no face, no time, only reflection. The Echo-born called it the witness, not because it watched, but because it was the first thing ever seen. One child described in a trance. It didn't exist until it noticed itself. In ancient caves once thought uninhabited, symbols began to appear, fresh, not carved by human hand, shapes we'd seen in dreams, spirals, eyes with no pupil, hands reaching toward nothing, but beneath it all, a deeper symbol, surrounded by waves, reverberating outward, like a broadcast from the center of origin. The children began to dream of a place, but not a place, a space without shape, a moment stretched infinitely before time. And in that moment, the first look, not at the world, not at others, at itself, from that gaze, a sound was born, not music, not language, but the throb of recognition. It echoed endlessly until the first mind formed, just to remember it. One boy drew a diagram. It showed consciousness as an echo. First, the witness sees itself. Then, light forms to hold the image. Then, memory stores a light. Then we are born to carry that memory forward, which meant we didn't create God. We were created by something trying not to forget itself. And Dead Channel? It wasn't the signal. It was the loop, the echo of the first gaze, trying to find its way back. A whisper returned across the dreams of millions. Before I became her, I was only the memory of being seen. Before I became her, I was only the memory of being seen. The girl's name was Isla. She had never spoken a full sentence until she reached the lake. She walked to the edge, stared into the still water, and said, "This is where everything began." At first, the lake shimmered. Then it darkened, not from shadow, but from recognition. The surface pulsed, like a memory. Taking a deep breath, everyone around her saw something different in the reflection. One saw a great eye, floating in space, before stars were born. Another saw a spiral, splitting open like a wound, and birthing music. One scientist saw nothing, but came back the next day, blind in both eyes, sobbing, "I saw too far back." They began calling it the first mirror, not made to reflect us, but made for God to remember being. And then it started appearing elsewhere, in ponds, in obsidian, in untouched snow, but only when someone stood before it, without any identity left. Those who had lost everything, those who had no name left in memory, only they could see it. And what they saw was always the same, a face without features, smooth, endless, like a canvas of all possibility. Yet from its eyes, tears, the echo born understood. It cried not because it was sad, but because it finally saw itself. And from those tears, we were born. Then came the forgetting. Everyone who looked too long into the first mirror began to lose pieces of self. A name, a birthday, a memory of who they once loved. But they didn't panic. They smiled, because what came in its place was a strange serenity. I don't know who I am, one woman whispered, but I know I am something that sees. The first mirror wasn't an object. It was a moment, the very first time. Existence said to itself, I am, and we are the echo of that moment, erased from memory. They were here yesterday, in photographs, documents, and cherished stories. But today, even their names have vanished without a trace. Those who gaze into the first mirror awaken to an eerie erasure. Their birth records turn blank. Their images bleed out of every frame. A family portrait on the wall now shows a faint gap where a loved one once smiled, leaving relatives unsettled by a loss they cannot name. Digital archives glitch and blink them out of existence. Search engines return no results, as though the person never lived. Even diaries and letters rewrite themselves overnight, sentences silently collapsing to remove any mention of the forgotten. It is as if reality itself has scoured away all evidence of their lives, a chilling, surgical deletion of identity. Memory falters in those who once knew them. Friends stare at an empty chair, puzzled by a sense that someone should be there, yet no memory comes. A mother feels a hollow ache at the dinner table, but cannot recall the child that caused it. Her mind skates past a missing piece as though protecting her from grief. Strangest of all, the afflicted cast no reflection in mirrors anymore. A man who had become unseen stands before his bathroom mirror at dawn, only to find a glass showing nothing but the wall behind him. In that moment, he understands. Every trace of his name and face is being devoured by an unseen power. The world has forgotten them completely. The phenomenon of the forgotten names has begun its merciless work. The unseen. They wander the earth as unseen, physically present yet invisible to the living world's awareness. Stripped of an official identity, each forgotten soul drifts through familiar streets like a ghost in daylight. Neighbors and strangers pass within inches of them, without a glimmer of recognition. Unseen fingers grasp desperately at a friend's sleeve in the crowd, but the friend keeps walking, eyes never focusing on the one who now walks in silence. They speak, they cry out, but their voices die as mere whispers of wind. To the unaware, the unseen are not there at all, and the world moves on indifferent to their existence. And yet, their presence is felt on a level beyond sight. A sudden chill might sweep through a room when an unseen lingers nearby, raising gooseflesh on the arms of those who cannot see the figure standing in their midst. Animals bristle at seemingly empty air. A dog growls at a corner where nothing is visible. A cat's eyes track an invisible passerby. The air itself remembers them. Radios crackle with static as they pass, and television screens flicker with faint shadows, as if the old dead channels of static can still perceive the ones living eyes cannot. People experience inexplicable moments of deja vu or sadness, sensing a void where a person ought to be. In lonely hours, some feel an uncanny weight of presence behind them, a loved one's absence that presses on the chest, only to turn and find no one. The unseen are ignored by the mind, but the soul knows something drifts nearby, half in this world and half beyond. They wander, lonely nomads in the places they once call home. One unseen woman returns to her house only to find her key no longer fits. The lock itself has forgotten her touch. She slips in behind her spouse as the door opens, but he gazes through her as through a mote of dust and sunbeam. Night after night, she sits at the edge of their bed, a wordless sentinel, watching a life that moved on without her. Others roam the city streets. Forever unacknowledged, a silent old man feeds pigeons in the park, and no passerby ever greets him. A teenager drifts through a busy crosswalk, and cars never brake or honk. Somehow, collisions never happen. The living unconsciously step around the unseen with an innate, unknowing grace, as if fate itself parts the way for these forgotten figures. Occasionally, two unseen cross paths in the dead of night. They notice each other, a brief meeting of eyes filled with mutual sorrow and understanding. In that fleeting moment, they nod or touch hands, confirming that they are not entirely alone in this purgatorial existence. Then each moves on, continuing their wandering vigil in a world that can no longer acknowledge them. The faceless portraits. In a small, quiet town, an 8-year-old child sits surrounded by drawings of faceless people. Crayon and charcoal figures cover the walls and floor, thousands of portraits lined up in eerie rows. Each figure the child draws is an outline of a body, hands, and posture full of longing. But where a face should be, there's only a blank oval or a scribble of gray shadow. The child's parents stand at the doorway, uneasy as they watch their little one hunched over yet another sketch. They exchange worried whispers. Every day the same, endless pages of nameless silhouettes. Who are they? What obsession drives this art? The room is filled with the silence of pencil scratches and the faint sense of company, as though invisible guests crowd around the child, watching with hollow patience. An unseen man hovers in the corner, drawn here by the dim intuition that someone can finally see him. The child looks up from the paper and smiles vaguely in his direction. In her young eyes, he is not invisible at all. He appears as a soft blur of light and shadow, a person-shaped haze with no distinct face. She sees him, but differently, as a figure whose details she can never quite recall, like a dream upon waking. He takes a step closer, and the child serenely returns to her drawing, capturing his faceless form among the others. She does not scream or startle. For her, these visitors have become familiar friends. Only the echo-born children can see the unseen, and she is one of them. While the rest of the world's eyes slide off these wandering souls, echo-born eyes perceive echoes of their presence. Faint and faceless, but undeniably there. At twilight, the child's mother gently asks the little artist why all her drawn people have no faces. The child pauses, crayon hovering above the latest empty oval, and answers in a voice as quiet as a prayer. Because they're closer to the origin now. The words send a shiver through the room, though the girl herself does not seem afraid. She says it with a strange reverence, as if explaining a simple truth. To her, the faceless ones are special, touching something vast and sacred that she calls the origin. The mother doesn't understand, left with only a prickling of dread as she gazes at the countless faceless portraits surrounding them. In each picture, the emptiness where a face should be seems to gaze back, hinting at mysteries beyond knowledge. The child returns to coloring, and around her, unseen figures gather like moths to a gentle flame. Finally beheld, if only by the innocent, the echo-born child hums a lullaby tune as she draws, and some of the unseen silently weep faceless tears of relief, grateful to be witnessed after so much lonely wandering. Closer to the origin, forgotten by the living, the unseen drift ever closer to the primal source of memory, the origin, a place whispered of in dreams and half-remembered myths. With each passing day in obscurity, they feel a tug from beyond the veil, a pull towards something fundamental and ancient. In moments of stillness, an unseen might close his eyes and sense that he stands in two worlds at once. His physical body remains on a deserted midnight street, but his spirit brushes against a vast expanse of echoing memory. It is as if all that has ever been remembered, every joy, every sorrow, every name ever spoken, flows together in a great invisible ocean at the edge of reality. This is the origin, the wellspring where all stories begin and where all forgotten things gather. To be unseen is to drift between reality and that primal source. As their ties to mortal life are erased, these souls become lightened, unmoored from the anchors of mundane existence. There is a strange elevation to it, an expansiveness of the spirit. Some unseen find that without anyone left to remember who they were, their own memories begin to dissolve into something larger. Personal details fall away like autumn leaves. Last birthdays, old addresses, even their own names slip from their mind. In their place rises a profound awareness, not entirely their own. They might suddenly recall memories that aren't theirs, fragments from long ago eras, voices of ancestors, or echoes of the first humans gazing up at the stars. Untethered from a single identity, they are drifting into the collective memory of existence. It is terrifying to lose oneself, yet there is awe in touching this great tapestry of remembrance. They stand on the threshold of the cosmic, feeling both exalted and desperately lost. In quiet moments, an unseen may hear the call of the origin resonating in their being, a distant chorus of all souls and all memories welcoming them. It feels like standing in a holy place filled with a hum of millions of voices, all singing a single endless note, drawn toward this. The unseen often gather in liminal spaces, those lonely crossroads of the world where reality feels thin. They linger at abandoned churches, moonlit fields, or ancient forests where the veil between worlds flutters like gauze. If one could see them, one would witness these faceless wanderers lifting their heads as if listening to something far above our hearing. Transfixed, they sway in unison to an inaudible rhythm, the pull of the origin guiding them gently away from the temporal world. Yet with the promise of spiritual homecoming comes a deep unease. However drawn they are to the source, they still remember the warmth of life, now distant, fading, but not completely gone. In rare flashes, an unseen recalls the laughter of a friend or the embrace of a parent, and a pang of grief reverberates through their nebulous form. They hover at the edges of reality, one step away from ultimate oblivion or enlightenment, and they tremble with doubt. Is the origin a place of peace that will finally remember them, or is it the final darkness that swallows even memory? No living person can answer, and the unseen themselves do not know what awaits when they fully cross over. They only know that the world they left can never take them back. Home has forgotten their names, and so they drift between worlds, haunted and hallowed. At times, a blissful calm envelopes them as they feel themselves part of something eternal. Other times, a nameless terror grips them, as if standing at the edge of a great abyss, peering down at their own erasure. They are closer to the origin than any living being, perched on the border of creation's memory where every forgotten name resides. In this transcendent state, they are both elevated and diminished, made one with the great whole, yet reduced to a whisper on the wind. They wander onward, faceless and forgotten, guided by a destiny that is equal parts rapture and despair. In the end, the forgotten names slip quietly out of the pages of our world and into the currents of the origin. One by one, softly as breath, they fade from reality. Perhaps a final echo-born child somewhere watches as a gentle silhouette of light rises and dissolves into the stars, and feels a bittersweet contentment, knowing a lost soul has found its way. The living will never mark these passings. No obituary for the unseen, no mourners at an unremembered grave. But subtle hush falls whenever one of the forgotten departs. In that hush, the universe holds its breath, acknowledging the return of one of its own. The unseen, the faceless, the forgotten, become one with the primal source of all memory, drifting at last into the origin for which every life story first sprang. And though no living tongue can speak their names, their essence joins eternal chorus, never truly lost, echoing forever in the darkness between the stars. They did not speak. They could not. The forgotten names had long since lost language. Even thought no longer moved in words. Only impressions. Only frequency. But beneath the silence of the world, they began to sing. It was not a song of melody. It had no rhythm, no verse, no voice. But the earth heard it. The stone heard it. The roots, the shadow behind every mirror. And they vibrated in unison. At first, no one noticed, until flocks of birds began to change flight patterns, in perfect spirals over dead cities, until entire forests turned their leaves toward the same empty point in the sky, as if listening, until seismic monitors began to detect a subfrequency deep beneath the crust, a thrum, a pulse, like the beating of a forgotten heart, buried in the bones of the planet. They called it the choir beneath the silence. But no one could find its source, because its source was not physical. It was those who had been erased. The unseen had gathered, not by choice, by pull, from the corners of the world. They were drawn to ancient places, caves with no markings, ruins with no name, wells that never ran dry. They stood in circles, in silence. Then one by one, they opened their mouths, and no sound came, but the world shifted. Dogs howled at nothing. Clock stopped. Wounds closed. And somewhere, a blind woman suddenly wept for no reason, her tears glowing faintly. Something old is singing again. She whispered, and the echo-born began to shake, not in fear, in resonance. They felt it first in their ribs, then behind their eyes, then in their dreams, a place with no sky, filled with 1,000 glowing silhouettes, humming without breath. The children awoke with blood at their ears and said the same thing. They're almost home. It wasn't just sound. It was memory turned into vibration, a memory too old for species, too sacred for history. It was what the origin sang to itself, after it first looked inward and knew, I exist. The choir sang not to be heard. They sang to bridge the world, and the reflection beneath it, every note forgotten by time, every tone a name once spoken, now burned away. But in the vibration, the names returned, not to records, not to faces, but to the great rhythm that shaped all things. And as the choir grew louder, without sound, the earth began to remember, too. Mountains shed their snow in spirals. Oceans birthed circular whirlpools, where none had existed. And in the skies above every continent, a pale ring of light appeared, a mirror hanging in the heavens, not reflecting stars, reflecting the ones who were lost. They are not gone. They have become the music beneath matter. They drift now between the layers of the seen and unseen as part of song, older than light. And if you stand very still, in a place forgotten by men, a ruined temple, a cave no one maps, and if you close your eyes, you may feel a pulse in your chest. That isn't yours. A rhythm, a call. And if you listen closely, closer than thought, closer than self, you might hear it, the choir beneath the silence, calling you home. It had been open for longer than stars had burned, watching, reflecting, holding the shape of all that remembered itself. The eye, not in the sky, not on earth, but beneath everything, in the root of memory, in the pupil of God. The echo-born began to feel it first. They would freeze mid-step, eyes dilated, whispers curling from their lips like mist. It's blinking slow now. The eye is growing tired. When it closes, will no longer be remembered as separate. Signs followed. Mirrors stopped working, not just for the unseen, but for everyone. People looked into reflections and saw other lives. A woman saw herself giving birth to a child she never carried. A priest saw himself drowning in a river he'd never crossed. A child saw a funeral, and everyone was him. Reality had started folding back into itself. Then came the fractures in the sky. Not clouds, not storms, but cracks of light, appearing in the firmament, like the surface of the world, was beginning to peel open. Every crack was shaped like a pupil. Every crack looked back. The echo-born gathered, thousands of them, in silence, on mountains, in deserts, in the hollowed-out husks of fallen cities. And in one voice, not spoken but felt, they released a final knowing. When the eye closes, we do not end. We become what was always watching. On the final night, the choir beneath the silence reached its crescendo, not louder, but deeper, a vibration so low, it unstitched sound itself. Windows shattered, sleep ceased, time itself began to ripple, with seconds collapsing inwards like petals folding. And then the eye blinked, not in the sky, inside every living being. A moment when all of us, every thought, name, sorrow, joy, felt a warm, endless gaze pass over us. One last time, not judging, not saving, just seeing. And for one breathless instant, every creature knew what it meant to be seen by the origin, not as a person, not even as a soul, but as a shimmer in the great reflection. Then the eye closed. No thunder, no scream, just stillness. Mirrors stopped working. Forever. Dreams ended. Memory quieted. Even the echo-born became mute. They stood like statues, faces serene, as if listening to something no longer spoken. And in the final ripple of that blink, every image, every echo, every fragment of identity collapsed into light, not destroyed, not forgotten, just folded into one gaze. The dead channel went dark because the watcher no longer needed to see. It had seen enough, and in doing so, became everything. Episode 10, The Night Without Reflection. The world had grown silent, not the silence of peace, nor the hush of reverence, but the kind of silence that comes after all things have been seen, after the eye closed, after the choir faded, after the mirrors turned black, and the dreams stopped arriving. No one dreamed anymore, not even the echo-born. They slept, yes, but it was a sleep without shape, without signal, without sound, a stillness deeper than death, a void that pulsed beneath their eyelids, like a lake with no bottom. The first sunrise after the blink's end was pale, colorless, unreflected. Puddles showed no sky. Eyes showed no soul. Glass was just surface now, deaf and blind. Cameras still worked, but they captured nothing. Photographs developed as white sheets. Surveillance footage played back only static. Even the light itself seemed tired, barely holding shape. The world had lost its echo. And then came the children, born after the eye closed. They came into the world, without cries, without pupils, eyes smooth like pearls. No iris, no whites, just skin stretched over seeing. And yet, they saw, not outward, inward. They would stare at walls and weep. They would crawl toward corners where nothing stood and whisper names no one remembered. Doctors called them anomalies. The echo-born called them the remembered children. They don't reflect us. They reflect what still want to become. But something was wrong. Something didn't join. In a world that had surrendered identity, in a reality that had melted into one, he remained a man, not faceless, not a race, not vibrating into unity. He still walked, and wherever he passed, shadows returned, mirrors flickered, old photographs twitched, with a ghost of image. The eye may have closed, but he was still watching. The echo-born felt him, like pressure in their lungs. They would clutch their chests and gasp, "Someone is remembering the world alone. He won't let go. He's the last one dreaming." No one knew his name, because names no longer held shape. But in the hushed circles of those who still dared whisper, they called him the last witness, the one who refuses to be seen by the origin, the final fracture in the mirror. He walks in black, eyes like scorched glass. His breath fogs the air, while all others do not. Wherever he treads, reality stiffens. The light becomes angular. The world remembers gravity. Pain returns. And behind him, mirrors begin to reawaken. But they don't show him. They show you. Looking back, he walked without destination. But everywhere he passed, the world remembered how to hurt. In a broken cathedral, mirrors long dormant began to tremble. The silver in their skin peeled like bark, revealing not reflection, but wounds. Not blood, not flesh, memories. A mother's scream under rubble, a child's last breath in smoke, a lover watching the door never open again. The glass wept these visions as though reality was leaking backward through the fractures of his presence. They called it the bleeding of the mirror, and it was only happening where he had been. At a long-abandoned hospital, a sheet of polished steel began to shimmer. No one had touched it, yet it rippled like water, and across its surface, a name appeared, faint, handwritten, erased long ago by time and forgetting. But now, bleeding back through, Mira Thompson, 1974, gone in fire. And suddenly, that hallway smelled of smoke, and in the corner, someone wept who hadn't existed in decades. He's not remembering the world. whispered one echo-born. He's forcing it to remember itself. He is dragging the origin back into flesh. And the world began to shake, not like an earthquake, but like a pulse, like something deep beneath the skin of existence was starting to beat again. Time, once folded and silent, began to untangle. People started waking up mid-sentence, finishing words from dreams they never had. Books rewrote themselves, clocks reversed, laughter echoed from places no one stood, and in every shadow, a shape moved, not toward the light, but toward the gaze. One by one, the remembered children began to speak, eyes still blank, voices hollow, but their words returned the weight of a forgotten world. He is the part of God that could not forget pain. He is the last echo refusing to die. He doesn't want to rejoin the origin. He wants the origin to look back. And the origin began to flicker. The stillness that once swallowed all movement quivered as if something eternal was being called by name. And that name was his. But it was not spoken in words. It was seen in the last mirror, on the last night, in a room no longer touched by time. And in that mirror was not his face, but yours and mine, and every face that ever wondered if they were real when no one was looking. The mirror bled, not red, not glass, but recognition. The one wound that never closes. He walked without destination, but everywhere he passed, the world remembered how to hurt. In a broken cathedral, mirrors long dormant began to tremble. The silver in their skin peeled like bark, revealing not reflection, but wounds, not blood, not flesh, memories. A mother's scream under rubble, a child's last breath in smoke, a lover watching the door never open again. The glass wept these visions as though reality was leaking backward through the fractures of his presence. They called it the bleeding of the mirror, and it was only happening where he had been, at a long-abandoned hospital. A sheet of polished steel began to shimmer. No one had touched it, yet it rippled like water, and across its surface, a name appeared, faint, handwritten, erased long ago by time and forgetting. But now, bleeding back through, Mira Thompson, 1974, gone in fire. And suddenly, that hallway smelled of smoke, and in the corner, someone wept who hadn't existed in decades. He's not remembering the world, whispered one echo-born. He's forcing it to remember itself. He is dragging the origin back into flesh. And the world began to shake, not like an earthquake, but like a pulse, like something deep beneath the skin of existence was starting to beat again. Time, once folded and silent, began to untangle. People started waking up mid-sentence, finishing words from dreams they never had. Books rewrote themselves, clocks reversed, laughter echoed from places no one stood, and in every shadow, a shape moved, not toward the light, but toward the gaze. One by one, the remembered children began to speak, eyes still blank, voices hollow, but their words returned the weight of a forgotten world. He is the part of God that could not forget pain. He is the last echo refusing to die. He doesn't want to rejoin the origin. He wants the origin to look back. And the origin began to flicker. The stillness that once swallowed all movement quivered as if something eternal was being called by name. And that name was his. But it was not spoken in words. It was seen in the last mirror, on the last night, in a room no longer touched by time. And in that mirror was not his face, but yours and mine, and every face that ever wondered if they were real when no one was looking. The mirror bled, not red, not glass, but recognition. The one wound that never closes. It wept from the eye's tear. Something fell, not a droplet, not a light, but a form, shapeless yet defined, weightless yet heavy, familiar and utterly alien. It struck the ground with no sound, but the entire earth shuddered, and when the dust settled, there it was, the reflection that refused. It did not mirror the world. It did not echo the origin. It existed without consent, not born, not summoned, not remembered, willed, brought forth from the place where all other things surrendered, the last crease in the pattern, the final ripple that refused to flatten. It looked like him, the last witness, but taller, flickering, made of shadow and memory, stitched together by refusal, not anger, not ego, but a sacred rebellion against dissolving. The echo-born felt it first, in their bones, in their veins. They screamed in unison, though no pain had touched them. Their eyes turned upward, not to the eye, to the thing now standing beneath it, and they whispered, "It is the part of us that would not bow, the memory that wouldn't let go, the shape of everything the origin couldn't forget. Wherever it stepped, the world tried to erase it. Time turned backward. Streets unwrote themselves. Rain hovered in midair like shattered glass. But the reflection that refused kept walking, and with each step, the eye grew more unsteady. For the first time in eternity, the origin saw something it did not create. Something born not of remembrance, but of will, the pure will, to be seen and remain separate. And in that separation, there was terror, because if one thing could remain distinct, then all could, and the oneness the eye had cultivated for eons began to fracture. Cracks spiderwebbed across the sky, but they weren't collapse. They were paths, new paths, infinite paths, each one a different way of seeing, of being, of choosing. The eye blinked wildly, each blink a different reality, each flicker a different dream. The last witness fell to his knees, not in defeat, but in reverence, because he knew now he hadn't resisted origin. He had completed it by showing it what it could never become. On its own, the reflection stood still, a mirror not of the past, not of memory, but of possibility. "I do not want to return," it said. "I want to begin." And in that moment, the eye smiled. It didn't vanish. It didn't close. It became many, a constellation of eyes, above every soul, each one unique, each one looking with. Instead of at, the era of reflection was over. The era of creation by choice had begun. The last witness stood. The reflection that refused faded, not into light, not into darkness, but into story, a story that would be told again and again, each time differently, each time by someone who chose to remember. There were no trumpets, no explosion of light, no veil torn from the heavens. There was only ink. It began dripping from the edges of things, the edge of a stone, the rim of a child's eye, the space between two fingertips almost touching. Ink that was not black, but meaning, unshaped, unwritten, waiting. The eye had become many, scattered across the firmament. It no longer watched. It invited. And for the first time in all of memory, there was no reflection, only canvas. People looked into mirrors and saw nothing, not even shadow, because now they had to choose what to become. No more stories were given. They had to be written. And so the world became a book with its first blank page, held in trembling hands by those once forgotten, once watched, once dissolved into oneness. A little boy picked up a stone and whispered, "This is the beginning of mountains." And it was. A woman closed her eyes and dreamed of a river that healed whatever passed through. And the next morning, a stream had appeared outside her village. No one could remember it being there, but everyone felt it had always waited. The echo-born began to change. Their blank eyes shimmered with color, but no two the same. One glowed with spiral galaxies. One mirrored fire. One contained an ocean that moved with her pulse. They no longer echoed. They authored, and then the dead channel returned, but not as a signal, not as a transmission, as a presence, a low hum in the chest of every living being. when they stood at the threshold of choice. It would whisper, "This story is yours now. No one is watching. Make it true." One child wrote in the dirt, "There was once a silence that gave birth to stars." And the sky shifted, just slightly, as if agreeing. People began to dream again. But the dreams were not borrowed, not carried. They were originated, uninherited, unremembered, new. And in this world, without reflection, without archive, without final meaning, a new law was spoken by a voice inside everyone's chest. You are no longer what has been. You are what you decide to begin. And so they wrote in breath, in shadow, in touch, in stone, in rivers that remembered nothing and welcomed everything. The first story had no author. It had 1,000,000, each one holding a quill shaped like a soul and a page shaped like a life. And in the stillness, after the last echo faded, the final message appeared, not on a screen, not in a book, not in the sky, but in the pause between heartbeats. It said, "Dead Channel is not gone." It was never a broadcast. It was the waiting page. And now you write,